Telesin has sent me their new master grip, and in this video I want to compare it to some similar products like the Leica Lux grip and really find out who this is made for and what the perfect target audience or use case really is. So here it is unboxed, and to get the least interesting parts out of the way real quick so we can talk about the main features. Obviously we have a perfectly fine USB-C cable. You also saw in the unboxing we have a screen protector, and one surprising part is the hand strap so you don't drop your phone by accident. It's very strong and seems a bit overbuilt, so I think the people who use this will definitely be positively surprised compared to a lot of the random ones you always get with iPhone cases and stuff. So that's nice. I personally, to be honest, never really used those, but luckily I never really dropped my phone. Knock on wood. And now to the interesting part. First of all, the case, which I think looks kind of nice with the orange phone. Maybe with the silver it would also look really nice. Since the iPhone 17 Pro already has the vapor chamber built in, I think now we need it a little bit less than in previous models, but still I think it's very nice and I really like the combination. So with the built-in vapor chamber as well as the heat dissipation in the case, I think that's an awesome combination. But yeah, enough about that. But now to the most interesting part, the master grip itself. And I already felt for a bit how strong the magnet is, so that's very nice to know. I think if you hold it like this, no matter what you do, you will not drop it unless you, I don't know, run into something. But yeah, I don't think that will ever happen, so that feels very, very secure. And also in their marketing material or in some sponsored video, they show that if you, for example, record and then you want to switch around and record yourself, you can. But just know that on this side is the MagSafe ring that is actually for the phone, which is very, very strong. And on this side is just the accessory one for the light. So here it definitely can fall. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But still really great if you want to quickly record yourself and then switch back to product or the person you're filming. And like I said, this is actually made for the light. But since the light weighs much less than the phone, I think for the light it's more than strong enough. So you will never have any problems there by dropping it or something. Also note how this is sticking out a little bit. But because the Pro is smaller than the Pro Max, I think on the Pro Max it might not stick out. But it doesn't really matter since you can turn it however you want. So it's never in the way. Just so you know that. You probably would keep it on the top most of the time, because actually a great feature about this is if you ever want to go back and forth between filming another person and yourself, for example, you can really quickly change in which way the light should go, and you can also turn it like this, which is nice. Then it comes a little bit from the top, for example, but obviously this is not the most cinematic light. That's not what it's made for. But I filmed a lot of interviews and stuff at events, and a lot of times it's just really a matter of can you get the face bright enough to actually film. So for stuff like this, for example, running around at the event, quickly turning it on, film the person, or if you have a little product that you want to show, maybe like this, for that it's very, very nice. Obviously you also don't need it connected to the phone since it has a battery, so you could also you could also hold it like this or have a person hold it for a second if you want it at an angle. So that's very, very nice. Also underneath the light is actually a mirror, so that's awesome, so you can see yourself. And yeah, I think that's very nice. You have on the underside a wheel, so you can make it more or less bright. And with each push you change the color temperature. And I think that's also very nice, so you can somewhat match the whatever room temperature you have, or whatever color temperature you have in the room you're filming, for example. So that's very nice. Also, quickly pointing out, it actually stands if you just put it like this. So with the light and the grip, it stands perfectly fine. Also, you can stand it up like this, which is nice. And actually that's more stable than you would think. So if you just put it like this, I don't think it will ever fall over. So that's also very nice. Let's try actually if you can also go like that. Definitely a little bit less stable, and the angle is not perfect to film yourself. But yeah, it also works. So if you maybe put it on a box or something, you could use it for a Zoom call. But that's not what it's made for. Just yeah, good to know. And they didn't need to do this to make this the perfect angle for it to balance, but they did. So that's very, very nice. And now to the features inside of the grip. And I think to save you some time, I don't go over every little function and button and stuff that you have seen from other videos to save some time. But there are two things that are actually very interesting that I want to point out. And the first one is, for example, I can press record, obviously. But then what reminds me a lot about camcorders, because I actually work in television and there we use a bunch of broadcast camcorders. And actually the zoom, which Apple improved this year with the 17 models, is more smooth than ever before. So from 0.5 all the way into 24x is very, very smooth. You barely can notice the switches between the lenses, especially if you record something further away, you don't really notice it. So that's awesome. Just like when you use a camcorder, and obviously not the most cinematic thing, but there are quite a few use cases. For example, when you watch television, a lot of times when an airplane is taking off, and they pan the camera behind it and zoom in, for example, from there you might know it. So I actually find that very interesting. And the other thing is, if you record, then you can actually press pause here. But what I like is you can also double press the function button that is on top here. And if you do that, it stops the video and then you can keep going. And that way you can just walk around, collect a bunch of B-roll shots, for example, then throw the log video into Kino to quickly give a LUT as a color grade, and then you can just post it straight away, for example, to Instagram story, no editing, no color grading, nothing. So having this functionality inside of the grip is actually quite nice, because obviously you don't always want to reach for the button. So running around like this, recording and then stopping and repeating, I actually find very, very nice. As a first comparison, let's quickly look at the light. So the Telesin Master Grip light versus the Tilta Chronos one that has been out for a while, because it's first time they released it with the 15 Tilta Chronos Ultimate Kit. Then also with 16 and 17 it stayed, and you can turn it on by holding the button. Same here, you can hold the button. Now both of them are at the minimum amount of brightness. With the Tilta one you can push once and push twice for the maximum brightness. With the Telesin one, you can actually somewhat smoothly turn this wheel, but I think it's not really a feature that you would use that much. Most of the time you would just use it at 100% or off. At least that's from my experience. For example, when filming interviews at events and stuff. And one more interesting thing, or actually two more interesting things for the Telesin one, is you can actually change the color temperature, which might come in handy in some situations, but also I think it's a feature that is very nice to have, but not that usable, or that important, I would say. Definitely usable. But one other thing is that, which is a benefit, you can actually turn it off, so you can hold it at an angle, for example, and use it as a light other than just the on-camera light. The Tilta one is obviously just on camera, but also it comes with the benefit that this doesn't even have a battery, so it's powered through the cage, and this can obviously run out of battery. But that's just a comparison. Also the Telesin one is actually a little bit bigger, so that also might make a small difference. But with lights like this, they are not cinematic or anything to write home about, but they are just very useful to have. For example, if you have to record an interview or a vlogging clip of yourself in just bad lighting. Now, if you are considering buying the Master Grip of Telesin, and you maybe do some research, then I think there are only two other options that you come across that look interesting, because I think we can leave all the random cheap recording buttons and stuff outside. And these are the two that I actually have been using for the longest time. And now obviously Telesin sent me this one, but actually it will not depend on that. Instead, what will actually decide which one you like the most will 100 or almost 100% be just your preference in the camera app that you're using. Because we just shown that in the Telesin, with the Telesin grip, it works perfectly in the native camera app. So if you only use the native camera app, you already have a winner, which is, by the way, also the cheapest of those options. So there you go. But if you want to, for example, use the Leica app, I think it's very niche, but I personally, it's my favorite photography app as of now. Then you need the Leica grip, or you don't really need it. You can also just use any camera app without any grip, but you get what I'm saying. In the Leica app, the Leica Lux grip works the best. And in the Blackmagic camera app, which in my opinion is the most important app, because that's actually what I use for work a lot of times. for my YouTube videos and for all sorts of stuff for my clients and so on. And that only works really well with the Tilta Chronos Focus PD handle. So Blackmagic camera app, Leica Lux app and native camera app. And Telesin also came out with their own camera app that I think is not really sure how it's official, but somewhat still in beta or something, because I heard a lot in other videos how they still develop features and stuff. But it's very interesting, also has their own types of filters and looks and stuff. But yeah, basically, native camera app is Telesin, Blackmagic camera app is Tilta Chronos. And yeah, if you like me and you like the Leica app, then you also might want to consider this. But like I said, in price, definitely Telesin is winning. It's quite difficult to compare it to the Chronos system because it's so different with all the different mounting options, and you can use microphones and the USB-C hub and the active cooling compared to the cooling case. And you have filters and filter mounts and lens mounts and all sorts of stuff. So it's quite difficult to compare the price just as it is. But the Telesin one is obviously the cheaper option. And yeah, Leica obviously charged Leica prices, so it's like triple the price of the Telesin one. Also it comes without a case and so on. And that, by the way, brings me to my last thing that I want to show, because obviously you don't need to use the case that came with it. I mean, the case comes in the kit, so why not use it? But obviously you can also use it without, because all the functions are actually with Bluetooth. So you don't need the case. In fact, you don't even need to have it connected. But that same thing goes with the Leica and the Tilta one, because all of them work via Bluetooth. So you don't have to have it connected, and you obviously can use it without the case, which also brings me to the another point that I wanted to make. And that's you can actually use any case, for example, small rig or newer. Here, this is the small rig one that has the 17mm mount right now installed. So now you could use the Telesin one, but with the 17mm lenses, or for example, you could use a moment case with the moment lenses. So that way you're not completely locked into some system. And the same thing obviously also goes with the Leica Lux grip. So that's also, I think, interesting to know. If you want, then you can switch out the case for another case. Maybe in this one, if you want to do the overheating comparison, maybe this material and the vent would help. So that's to consider. And also, one more thing, obviously the Tilta one comes with its active cooling, so that's the most effective way to keep your phone from overheating. But yeah, obviously also more pricey and stuff. Obviously Tilta comes with its own cooling fan and its own ecosystem, so that you would probably leave as it is. But the other ones you can kind of mix and match. And in fact, you can also use the Tilta cooling fan and put it on top of this case. And then obviously you can no longer use the grip, but this you could also use this to cool off. And also it doesn't need to be Tilta. You can look on Amazon. There are an endless amount of usually marketed as gaming fans to stop your phone from overheating while playing like graphic intensive games. You can also use any of those, and you could obviously also put it on top of the grip, but I'm not really sure how effective the cooling is if you cool basically the grip. And yeah, I think that's not really much that logical, but that's just what I wanted to mention. Obviously the same thing also work with the Leica one. You could also use the Telesin light on any other MagSafe variant, because like we discussed earlier, it just works without. So yeah, you don't need to have it connected to anything. And I think officially the Leica one only has MagSafe on this side, but as you have seen, it's still magnetic enough. But if you wanted it stronger, obviously you don't need a special MagSafe side. You could also just glue a MagSafe ring here. Same if your case doesn't have MagSafe, you can also do it. So there's actually quite a little bit of possibility to mix and match. I hope this video somewhat helped. Like I said, the camera app will decide the most. And yeah, if it helped, make sure to like and leave any questions down below. I might make more videos about it if there's interest. And as always, I'm in the comments answering all the questions.